What up YouTube? Make sure to like and subscribe to 318 Louisiana Legend YouTube channel. In this content we're going to discuss MARLO Mike passed on what led him to Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana. MARLO Mike, whose real name is Michael Louting. MARLO Mike was born and raised in South Baton Rouge. MARLO Mike grew up in the top of Southside Baton Rouge. MARLO Mike experienced poverty at a very young age. MARLO grew up in an apartment complex called Big D, which is now tore down. It was a rough environment for MARLO to adjust and adapt to. MARLO witnessed very violent crimes at a very tough age, which traumatized MARLO at a very young age. MARLO had no choice but to grow up so quick at a very young age. He had to learn to adjust and adapt to his surroundings so he wouldn't become a victim. He still became a product of his environment. MARLO grew up running with people like Lil Fat, Lil Ken, Ruger Reb, Lil Finn, Bleak, and many more people of South Baton Rouge. MARLO Mike and Lil Fat was best friends growing up. MARLO Mike didn't have a luxury life growing up. MARLO was picked on for being dirty and poor, so MARLO Mike had to make ends meet by any means necessary. MARLO Mike and Lil Fat start hanging together. They were real close, but the love between MARLO Mike and Lil Fat took a turn for the worst. Lil Fat felt like MARLO Mike had betrayed him. Lil Fat felt like MARLO Mike switched places and sides. MARLO started rolling with Boosie more than he did with Lil Fat. Lil Fat was the one who introduced MARLO Mike to Ghost, and Ghost introduced MARLO to Boosie. Lil Fat and Lil Boosie wasn't seeing eye to eye over on numerous situations, but MARLO Mike still roll with Boosie and not Fat. But MARLO and Fat were still cool through all the drama with what Fat and Boosie had going on at the time. MARLO and Lil Ken were still close and cool with each other. Lil Ken is Lil Fat big brother. Lil Ken was in on the Bleak hit. That's another reason why Boosie didn't like Lil Fat, cause Fat brother was in on the situation between Bleak and MARLO Mike. But Lil Fat still supported his brother and MARLO Mike too during the time. He was holding both of them down while they were incarcerated. I know that didn't sit well with Boosie at all, and MARLO Mike claims it was an accident. Bleak wasn't the target in that situation. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time allegedly. Bleak was warned numerous times to stay from around the target. So Bleak basically knew what he was doing. He knew what was going on. Bleak knew the beef was real, so why would you put yourself in that situation, Bleak? That really hurt Boosie when that happened. Boosie was still incarcerated at Angola State Penitentiary for drug charges. MARLO Mike was devastated by what had happened to Bleak also. MARLO was still at the crime scene after it happened. He hugged Bleak's sister and consoled her with passion. MARLO went to Bleak's funeral and to his Bleak's grandma house afterwards. He also hugged and kissed Bleak's mother also. MARLO Mike was so hurt, sad about Bleak also. He wasn't the one who pulled the trigger on Bleak, he was just the driver in that situation. He had no control over what happened to Bleak. A month later he gets picked up and questioned for aggravated assault and terrorizing charges in unrelated crimes. That's when they tell MARLO Mike Boosie put a hit on head and that he need to cooperate and snitch on Boosie to save himself, and they also threatened to lock MARLO Mike family members up if he don't cooperate with them. At first MARLO Mike lied when questioned the first time about other related charges. A couple days later he came back with information on Boosie and 7 other men's. MARLO Mike made statements against Boosie and all his other co-defendants. Michael, MARLO Mike, Louting, and another man to execute Terry Boyd, a 35-year-old Baton Rouge man gunned down inside a house. It was a case that featured tales of rival up-and-coming rappers and a teenage hitman whom prosecutors portrayed as hellbent on shooting his way into Hatch's inner circle. But, in the end, just Louting ended up convicted of murder, sentenced in July 2013 to spend the rest of his life in prison. It was a remarkable turn of events, as Louting at the beginning of the case turned on his alleged former associates, cooperating with prosecutors right up until he testified at Hatch's first-degree murder trial. While in the witness chair, he reversed course and told jurors that neither he nor Hatch had anything to do with Boyd's killing. Many of Louting's former co-defendants took deals, pleading out to 15 to 20-year sentences, the final one last month, that will see some released from prison in their 30s. Without Louting's cooperation, prosecutors dismissed all of the charges against 2 men entirely. Jared Williams, accused in the April 2009 killing of Marcus Gangsta Thomas and Jonathan Rogers, in the April 2010 slaying of Charles Noki Matthews and Daryl Bleak Milton. Prosecutors alleged that Louting's string of murders began in February 2009 with the killing of local rapper Chris Nussie Jackson. But after he was sentenced in the Boyd case, the DA's office dropped the first-degree charges against him in the Jackson slaying, as well as in the Thomas case and the double murder of Matthews and Milton. A second-degree murder charge against Louding in the December 2009 killing of Michael Smith Smith was also dismissed. Louding allegedly admitted to killing Baton Rouge rapper, Nussie, whose real name was Chris Jackson, in 2009. Louding said the reason Chris Jackson was killed was because he had been disrespectful to Boosie and basically had a run-in with one of Boosie's supporters and slapped the Boosie supporters. Louding claimed he killed Nussie because of an expected $15,000 payoff. That money is believed to have come from Lil Boosie, whose real name is Torrance Hatch allegedly. Jackson, an up-and-coming rapper known professionally as Nussie, died February 9, 2009, after being shot in the head at a house at 2317 America Street. He was 33. The confession tape played in open court. Louding said Lil Boosie told a friend to stamp Nussie because of what happened in a rap club. Mike Louding said the reason Chris Jackson was killed was because he had been disrespectful to Boosie and basically had a run-in with one of Boosie's supporters. Police said Louding was very cooperative after his arrest in May 2010. However, Louding's attorney said he sat there for hours before police started recording him. They did read him his rights, Lagatutta said. He is younger. My concern is all this time that's not recorded in this particular case in the very beginning. Not like an hour, we're talking like 7 or 8. MARLO Mike was trick off the streets. They never had not one piece of evidence on MARLO Mike. The police lied to MARLO and he fell for it. But he did go stand and recant his statements against Boosie and Boosie murder trial. Louding said he never told law enforcement that he shot Terry Boyd, but instead, he was at Hatch's house the night of the murder. He said Hatch and Adrian Pittman, the accused getaway driver, never left the house. Prosecutors said in opening statements they expected Louding to lie on the stand. On the interrogation tapes played in the courtroom. Louding at first said he wasn't involved in the murder. A couple of days later, when asked again, he said he did go to the house where Terry Boyd was and shot him through a window. He said he then went back to Hatch's house. He added once the phone calls came in saying Boyd was dead, Hatch paid him $2,800. I never killed Terry Boyd, Louding answered. And, Mr. Hatch never paid me to kill Terry Boyd. Cummings then played 2 phone calls between Louding and a man identified as Donkey. During those phone conversations, Donkey told Louding he can beat this and that nobody saw anything. He told Louding to he only brought up Hatch's name because he was beaten and that he was told his parents would be locked up. During questioning on the stand, when Louding did say he was told his mother and stepfather would be locked up, Cummings told him, "You're following, Donkey, script." Louding said he asked several people several times for a lawyer. The defense pointed out that when Louding was read his rights, he never answered whether he understood or not. Louding also testified that he was told by the district attorney's office and police that Hatch was trying to kill him. He said they told him the best way for that not to happen was to get Hatch off the street. Louding said he was told by police Hatch had a $25,000 contract out on him. Also at issue Tuesday was the length of time Louding was questioned. A detective testified Louding was picked up for terrorizing a young woman. They said he was questioned from noon until 10 p.m. on that day. But for the first 7 hours of questioning, the tape recorder was never turned on. The defense said when the record button was pressed, the first thing detectives said was, "Let's get this straight." He reads him his rights and says, "All right, you've come a long way, dog. Now, get it straight with me," said Jason Williams, one of Hatch's attorneys. Now, what does he need to get straight if he's telling his own story? If he's telling his own story, he doesn't have to get it straight. Just tell us what happened. Also not on the tape is when the district attorney came in to speak with Louding about making a deal. The detective said that did not happen until after questioning. Defense attorneys asked if someone pushed stop on the recorder. The detective answered, "No, that was not recorded." On the tape, detectives told Louding he was only being charged with the terrorizing assault charge, even though he had just confessed to murder. Detectives testified they lied to Louding, saying there were witnesses and physical evidence linking him to the scene. They said they also told him no one would believe he was innocent. Defense attorneys questioned Louding about telling doctors he hears strange voices in his head telling him to do bad things. They also asked Louding about other people who were at Hatch's home the night of the murder and who had bad blood with Terry Boyd. Jurors were told Adrian Pittman and Boyd had problems and Boyd had just robbed a man named Mike Ghost Judson, who is also now deceased. At one point during the trial, Louding was instructed to stand in front of the jury and show the tattoo on his stomach of an AK-47 with the words, "Yo Boosie who's next," around it. When asked what that means, Louding said it was just a tattoo. Prosecutors said Louding got the tattoo 2 weeks after Boyd was murdered. They said the tattooing was done at Hatch's home. A Baton Rouge state judge used phrases such as, "the worst of the worst," and, "rotten to the core," when she refused last year to alter the life prison term she had given convicted killer MARLO Mike, Louding in a 2009 murder for hire that rapper Torrance, Lil Boosie, Hatch was acquitted of orchestrating. A three-judge panel of the state First Circuit Court of Appeal said Friday it had no qualms with the harsh sentence imposed without parole by District Judge Trudy White on Louding or with her characterizations of the hitman found guilty in 2013. Considering the facts of the case as a whole, defendant's history of repeated criminality and the detailed reasons for imposing the sentence, we cannot say that the trial court abused its broad sentencing discretion in imposing a sentence of life imprisonment at hard labor, without the benefit of probation, parole or suspension of sentence, Circuit Judge John Pettigrew wrote for the panel. Louding's appellate attorney, Mark Plaisance, said he likely will ask the Louisiana Supreme Court to review the matter. East Baton Rouge Parish Assistant District Attorney Dana Cummings, who prosecuted Louding, said White made a well-reasoned decision. Michael Louding is the worst of the worst as required by the law, the prosecutor said. Louding, 22, of Baton Rouge, was 17 when he fatally shot Terry Boyd through a window as Boyd sat on a sofa inside a Vermilion Drive home on October 21, 2009. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 2012, a year before Louding was convicted, that states no longer can automatically sentence juveniles to life in prison without parole in murder cases without first conducting a hearing to consider the defendant's youth, upbringing, circumstances of the crime and other factors. The High Court also suggested such sentences should be reserved for the worst of the worst. The Louisiana legislature responded in 2013 by approving a measure requiring a sentencing judge to hold a hearing to determine whether the life sentence should be imposed with or without parole eligibility. If imposed with such eligibility, the legislation gives incarcerated offenders a chance at freedom after serving 35 years for first or second-degree murder. The state law took effect in August 2013. Louding, who was convicted of first-degree murder but was ineligible for the death penalty because of his age at the time of the crime, contends he has the capacity for rehabilitation and deserves a future shot at earning his freedom. White disagreed, and the First Circuit backed her. Louding also faced 4 other first-degree murder charges and a second-degree murder charge in a string of fatal shootings spanning a 14-month period starting in early 2009, but those charges were dropped after he was found guilty and sentenced to life in Boyd's killing. The First Circuit panel of Pettigrew and fellow circuit judges Jewel, Duke, Welch and Wayne Ray Chutz said Friday it was proper for the Louding jury to hear about several of those other crimes allegedly committed by him because some were, remarkably similar, to the facts in the Boyd case in that they were ambush crimes. Prosecutors maintain Louding killed Boyd at Hatch's behest, and they say Louding confessed to doing so. They also contend Louding lied when he testified at Hatch's trial that he and Hatch played no role in Boyd's death. Louding did not testify at his own trial. A jailed Louding wrote Hatch a letter in April 2013, saying, "I miss them good old days. I wish I was still in that world to lay the law down." The letter was introduced by Cummings at Louding's sentencing. Another Baton Rouge man, Adrian Pittman, 41, pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the Boyd case and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Pittman did not testify at Hatch's trial, but he told the jury in Louding's case he dropped Louding off near Boyd's home and then acted as the getaway driver. A Baton Rouge man whose testimony last month helped convict accused hitman MARLO Mike, Louding in an alleged murder for hire was sentenced Thursday to 20 years in prison. Adrian Pittman, 39, pleaded guilty in November to a manslaughter charge in the October 21, 2009, slaying of Terry Boyd. Pittman admitted driving Louding and another man, Michael Ghost Judson, to and from the murder scene. Judson was Terre murdered in 2010. East Baton Rouge Parish prosecutors contend Baton Rouge rapper Torrance, Lil Boosie, Hatch paid Louding to kill Boyd. Manslaughter carries up to 40 years in prison, but prosecutors offered Pittman a 20-year sentence if he testified truthfully at Louding's trial. If he testified untruthfully or refused to testify, he would receive 40 years. Pittman did not testify at Hatch's trial. Pittman testified at Louding's trial that he drove Louding and Judson from Hatch's home to the Vermilion Drive area the night of the Boyd slaying, then back to Hatch's house. Pittman told the jury the Boyd killing was prompted by letters from a Louisiana State Penitentiary inmate, convicted killer Lee Lucas, warning Hatch that Boyd planned to do Hatch harm. Boyd had recently been released from prison. Now MARLO Mike is serving life in Angola State Penitentiary with life without parole. Thanks for watching, liking the video. Make sure to subscribe to 318 Louisiana Legend YouTube channel. It's the best on YouTube. Tap in for the next video.